Members, it's the appointed time. We have a quorum. I call to order this meeting. So the first part is the meeting with the administration. So can we first invite the government officials to join us? Joining us today are Mr. Ivan Hong-Chang, Commissioner for Heritage from the Development Bureau, Ms. Winky Chick, Assistant Secretary for Development, and also Ms. Fion Lo, Executive Secretary from the Antiquities and Monuments Office. Also from the MO, we have Ms. Fanny Kong, Curator. Welcome. So can we first invite the Commissioner to walk us through the Antiquities and Monuments Declaration of Monuments and Historical Buildings Consolidation Amendment Notice 2024. Over to you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chairman. The authority under the AMO, or Antiquities and Monuments Ordinance, that is the Secretary for Development, has decided to declare two historic buildings, that is Lo Pan Temple at number 15 Chinling Terrace, Kennedy Town, and the residence of Tang Pak Kao at number 20 Si Tong Chun Kam Tin Yun Long as monuments. So this matter has been declared under the ordinance and it has been gazetted. This is subsidiary legislation. That's why this piece of Bldg is going through the negative vetting mechanism. With your permission, Chairman, I will now invite my colleagues from the Antiquities and Monuments Office to brief us on this notice. So we will now hear from Ms. Lo, the Executive Secretary. So this notice has to do with the declaration of two monuments for their historical value. So I want to start with the residence of Tang Pak Kao. The location is at number 20 Si Tong Chun Kam Tin. It's on a private lot. That structure bore witness to the history of Yun Long. Mr. Tang Pak Kao made huge contributions, not only to his own clan, but to the entire Yun Long and new territories at large. Mr. Tang ran his own business. He also committed himself to community service and education. On 4 occasions, he served on the board as the chairman of Pok Koi Hospital. Now, he also founded a hospital for women and children. He founded schools such as the Shiu Kei Public School and the Mengyang School. Mr. Tang Pak Kao also started a private school at his residence for children of the Tang clan. Given Mr. Tang's achievement, he earned different kinds of recognition. In 1947, he was appointed as a Justice of the Peace. He was the first gentry member from the new territories to be given such an appointment. Now, his home, built in the early 20th century, the home was built in the vernacular Qing style, and there were gray bricks. At this structure, you see a blend of Chinese and Western elements. The home is well preserved. You see Western columns and arches. On the archway, you see the wooden structure. And you also see different forms of tiles in the home. There's a 3-story watchtower. Such watchtowers are rare in historic buildings. That watchtower gave people a panoramic view so that people could defend themselves against bandits. Now, this home is on a private lot for the owner's occupation. It's not open to the public, but the owner has been willing to talk to our office So we took videos and we set up this kind of virtual tour for the public to have a look at the architectural features of this home. Our office has also put a panel there with a QR code. So on our website, you find this QR code, you can see the images about this home and the objects inside. Going forward, we will remain in touch with the owner. So we will arrange guided tours when appropriate. Now the other monument is the Lo Pan Temple, number 15 Chain Lin Terrace in Kennedy Town. Now this is the only temple in Hong Kong honoring Lo Pan. Lo Pan is much venerated in the craftsman community. This temple was built with donations from businesses. The temple was first built in 1884, but then because of dereliction and disrepair, it was later demolished. What you see now was rebuilt in 1928. The structure was built, torn down, and rebuilt. That process bore witness to the development of the local building industry. It's an icon of the local building community. The structure itself is very special because it has this two-hall, one-courtyard layout of a single bay with a recessed facade. You see wood carving, ceramic and moldings with murals. Now, you look at the main ridge, you will see Shiwan ceramics. You can also see the gables with 5-pointed and sharp angle wings. It's also rare in Hong Kong. In 2023 to 24, this temple got funding under a scheme of the Development Bureau for extensive repairs. This covered internal and external walls and also different components. The works were done earlier this month. We took videos of the repairs work. People can find that video on our website. We want the public to be able to get a better sense of the craftsmanship through that video. Now, before this temple was declared a monument, we have worked with the body running this temple. We arranged talks and also workshops on wood carving and ceramics. So we have been working with the Hong Kong Lo Pan Kwong Yue Tong, the body running the temple. And we will install information panels. Again, you will see a QR code. Our office has trained a group of docents. Starting from the 16th of next month, over weekends, there will be guided tours for the public. We want more people to visit the temple. There will be free guided tours for schools, charitable bodies. And there will be talks on Southern Chinese building techniques known as the Lingnan technique or Lingnan tradition. Now, Lo Pan, as I said, is venerated in the local construction industry. Declaring this temple as a monument is a significant step. We want this declaration to help us promote this culture, the continuity of construction technologies. We will work with the construction industry to promote the Lo Pan culture, and that covers craftsmanship, preservation of heritage, etc. We want to preserve the spirit of craftsmanship. Now we have all these MIC and quality assurance, etc. We want to promote such culture by incorporating the spirit of Lopan. And we're trying to build this MIC tech center, and then we expand the reach of this center. We want continuity. We want to preserve our heritage. So one highlight is that we will set up a STEM platform. On that platform, we will put information about the construction industry. We want to get students interested and give students a better idea of construction and engineering. Starting from 2010, the body running the temple has been doing something similar. So there has been a scheme involving youth. It's called the Young Lopan Award Ceremony. So that's all from me. I welcome questions and comments from members about this declaration. So now the floor is open for questions. Members, if you have questions, please press the request to speak button. 7 members are waiting to speak. Mr. Dennis Leung. So here's the order. Mr. Dennis Leung, Mr. Eric Yim, Mr. Lam Chun Sing, Professor James Lau, Mr. Perry Yu, Mr. Michael Lok, Ms. Doreen Kong, followed by me. So let's do 4 minutes for each member, and please allow time for the government to give you a reply. So let's start with Mr. Dennis Leung, 4 minutes. Thank you. The government has declared these two places, Lopan Temple and the former home of Mr. Tan Pak Kao, as monuments. I welcome this. I don't have any major issue with the law. With this subcommittee meeting, I'm thinking about heritage and the construction industry. Now we want tourism everywhere in Hong Kong. So can we turn these monuments into tourist attractions? Yeah, there are grade 3 and grade 2 historic buildings nearby. There's a cluster of such historic buildings. We can turn those buildings into tourist attractions. Now in Canteen, the home of Tan Pak Kao, again, you have grade 2 or grade 1, grade 3 historic buildings. So both monuments have potential for tourism. Let's take Lopan Temple. How do we fix the labor shortage in the construction industry? Can we leverage this monument to encourage young people to join the construction industry so that we have more local construction workers? I hope the government can ride on this, the Lopan culture, to promote tourism, the construction sector, and also the preservation of Chinese culture. Now, with the Lopan culture, we can also promote science, and that ties in with the emphasis on education, talent, and technology under the PA. Now, we have a number of monuments in Hong Kong, more than 100 in fact. So what's the amount of resources we can commit to education, tourism, and Chinese culture and create more mega events?
Thank you. Thank you for members' opinions. Both two buildings are Chinese-style historic buildings, including the Lopan Temple and Tan Pak Kao's residence. The Lopan Temple is a venerated place for the patron saint of Lopan Master, and it testifies the cultural landmark of the construction industry. On one hand, we have been in close touch with the management institution of the Lopan Temple. And through the partnership scheme, we offered a subsidy to the operator so they can maintain the historic building in good condition. And we take that opportunity to pass on our culture, especially the arts and culture. This is a South China style building, including the plaster moldings and ceramic figurines. These are all very good examples of Chinese style. And we work with the operators, so some mainland experts can provide some guidance on the maintenance work. In this way, the members of the public in both Hong Kong and mainland can have an exchange. And we paid much attention to the heritage of construction industry through different methods, including STEAM education. We can pass on the knowledge and culture to the younger generation. Next, Mr. Ying Kong. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Well, I support the motion to declare the two spots as monuments. These historic buildings were on private lots, and after they have been declared as monuments, the maintenance work will be carried out by its legal owners. Well, my question is, if the legal occupier or the owners are under financial stress, and if maintenance is not good and the heritage was damaged, how does the administration prevent from that from happening? And besides, will the administration keep close communication with the owners in checking the status of the work? And what standards of heritage protection should be abided by? And second question, I believe if the administration promotes these attractions, then this will be very popular on social media platforms like Xiaohongshu. And so how do you evaluate the capability of these two spots in receiving visitors? We know Lopan Temple is only open to the public twice a week, and Tempakao is not yet open to the public, but you've been studying the possibility. So how do you enable these two attractions to be more visitor-friendly? If you have finished the consultation research, will you charge the visitors, or will the government subsidize the visitors with tickets? Thank you, Mr. Yim. Ms. Low, please. Thank you, Chairman. Well, on the first question, the Antiquities and Monuments Ordinance protects monuments. If these buildings are declared as monuments, no demolition or other projects will be allowed, except with permits. So the Secretary for Development, namely the authority, will send a permit to the owner so they can maintain, they can do some repair and maintenance work on site. If it's a big project, then the AMO will discuss with them and look at the details of the projects. So we will strike a balance and we will help them apply for permits. Of course, if the owner plans to ask for help from the AMO, then we can offer some help. They can apply to us, and we can allocate proper resources. If the project needs, we can approve such a maintenance project. As we said, Lopan Temple is not open twice a week. It's open always, but the tourist guided tour groups are available twice a week on weekends. But the Lopan Temple, you don't have to pay any tickets. Well, as we said, we need to conduct regular inspection of declared monuments. Every year, our commissioners will visit these monuments to make sure that they're properly maintained. On the other hand, as for visitors, as it's regularly open, so the AMO will arrange guided tours on weekends, and we will allocate resources if the situation allows. Mr. Lam Chun-sing. Thank you, Chairman. I hope after these two places were declared as monuments, we can have more attractions in Hong Kong. This is especially true in Lo Pen Temple because we can promote the architectural culture of China and the craftsmanship of our construction workers, and they can be recognized by the society. I'd like to learn more about the temple. In 2004, the AAB suggested that the temple be listed as monuments, but due to some procedural issue, this was suspended, and then 20 years have gone away. So what were the procedural issues that prevented from it being properly declared on time? Because these monuments are up to standards. In principle, they have no issues, but due to some procedural problems, we have missed probably the best timing for preserving the heritage. So how do we prevent that from happening in the future? Second, I'd like to follow up on Mr. Ying Gong's question. Lo Pan Temple is now open to the public, but Tampakao's residence is not. Other heritages were not open. For example, my children and I visited Paflam. There were many monuments, like the town hall of HKU, and we have the Bethany, the Bethany Church, and there was a pastor behind it for visitors. I respect the rights of the owners, but if we can strike a balance, can we have some better solutions? For example, can these attractions be open once a week or over the weekends? And we can control the number of visitors, the flow of visitors, not to affect the operation of the sites, but we can allow some public engagement. Thirdly, in Yunlong, there is a Grade 1 historic building. There is a fire temple, and because people can offer incense at the temple, so we will consider the possibility of the temple being caught on fire. If we need to do some maintenance work, is there any room for improvement in terms of fire prevention? Thank you, Commissioner. Well, simply put, as for Lo Pan Temple, well, although it's only declared as monuments this year, back then it was already a Grade 1 historic building representing its heritage value. Over the years, we've been in close touch with the preservation groups. The new round of maintenance work was just completed, and they applied to us for some subsidies, and we offered some funds for their maintenance. So please rest assured, for these historic buildings, we conduct regular inspections, offer technical advices, and we make sure that they can receive some subsidy and support. Well, as for the details, why was a Lo Pan Temple redeclared as a monument this year? So I'd like to invite the Secretary to provide some explanation. Well, we would like to seek clarification on their owner rights. In 1928, this building, Lo Pan Temple, it was registered in the land registry, and this so we had 5 managers, and only this year we received further information the management groups offered some detailed information, including registration documents and meeting minutes. So we started the work of declaration of Lopan Temple as monument. Well, I can simply answer other questions. As for the opening of monuments, our policy is always to encourage the managers, operators, or owners to open these buildings as much as possible to the public. But we need to respect the owner rights and the actual use of this monument. So that's why we've been in negotiation with the groups. And these buildings are supposed to meet all the fire standards. Next one, Mr. Lau Chipan. Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I welcome the decision by the Development Bureau to declare Lopan Temple and Tenpakao's residence as monuments. But I'd like to draw your attention to the bigger picture. These two monuments are very interesting. For example, Lopan Temple. If my memory serves me right, Lopan Temple is the only one temple where people can pay tribute to the Master Lopan. If you look at the architecture, it's of very high cultural and architectural value. But in the past, monuments to the members of public were simply Instagrammable attractions. But this time, well, every year, some monuments are declared. It's not shocking news, but this time it's different. Well, it's different because there's two monuments. Of course, Lopan Temple is one of its kind, but Tenpakao's residence, I mean, it's a private home. And there are not many private homes among the monuments in new territories. Well, other colleagues have said something about cultural tourism, but this relates to history. Lopan is a native, is from Shandong. And now we have Lopan craftsmanship workshop, Lopan Workshop, which is a national project for training craftsmen overseas. So we don't want people to visit these attractions just for tourist purposes. The craftsmanship is something that we should really appreciate. Of course, safety is an important component in construction work. As for Tenpakao's residence, and behind the building, we can see the very important component in the clan-based society in ancient China. And if you look at a map in Kamting in Yunlong, Tenpakao's residence, if you compare that with other monuments, other historic buildings, grade 1 or 2 or 3 historic documents, maybe you can promote some kind of Kamting heritage path. This is a good idea because for the visitors, they come to Hong Kong. If they want some historical sites, I ask them to go to Pingshan. And if you can have these private homes being declared as monuments here in Kamting, can we do the same thing in Pingshan? Because in Pingshan, we have some ancestral homes, old residences as well. Can we probably tell the story of Asian Chinese, this clan-based society in new territories? We had ancestral homes, temples, and other public facilities. But I might have reached my time limit. I don't know if the commissioner can give a response. Well, this is not only a question, but also a comment.
So maybe the commissioner can give us a reply. So these two monuments are interesting in themselves. Now, Let's take the Lo Pan Temple. Lo Pan is the patron saint of the construction industry, which is booming in Hong Kong. That temple bore witness to our city's economic development over the years. In our promotion, we will not just focus on the structure, we will also discuss the Lo Pan culture and Hong Kong's story. We want people, locals and visitors, to also learn about the history behind it. Now, on the point about Tan Pak House residents, about the history of canteen, I agree with Professor Lau. We are in discussion about setting up a heritage trail. If we get stakeholders on board, we can put that into practice. Mr. Perry, you. I support this declaration. I want to ride on Professor Lau's point. I have some thoughts about the Lo Pan Temple. I was honored to be with the commissioner on my visit to the temple. That temple is steeped in history. We really should preserve our profound Chinese culture. I've just returned from a trip to Shandong. We have this one and only Lo Pan Temple. How do we make good use of that temple? Sure, let's conserve the temple. I know the commissioner has done much on this front. On the ridge, the ceramic figurines were repaired and conserved. We found some experts from Zhongshan to do the repairs, and then there was an exhibition. There was publicity. Good work. But I wonder how we can make good use of the monuments to tell the stories of Hong Kong and China well. There's a body running this temple, and that's Kwang Yue Tong. Can the government come up with a mechanism? Say, can the AMO work with the Tourism Commission and the district office? Can we have a kind of working group to turn this temple into something that offers an experience? When we were kids, we had subjects in carpentry and working with metal. Now, maybe you can offer something that features hands-on experiences for locals and inbound visitors, and then we can turn the temple into a tourist attraction. So it's a question as much as a suggestion. So I would like a reply from the commissioner. Now, on Tan Pak House residence, we have the Pingshan Heritage Trail. It's the most successful heritage trail. People know about this, and we can bring together different monuments, historic buildings, and ancestral halls. We can tell people about the families, the great families in the new territories and the ancestral halls. Can we have a mechanism for these monuments on private lots to open themselves up for public access? And how can we get the tourism sector involved? That sector can help promote the monuments. How can we bring the stakeholders together? How do we make the most of the monuments so that the monuments can serve education and also tourism purposes? Commissioner. Indeed, we should make the most of monuments. Leaving the monuments there risks squandering the potential of the monuments for culture and education. So we encourage owners to open up the monuments to visitors and locals so that people can learn more about the history. Now, on experiential activities at the Lopan Temple. The owner, that is, the body running the temple, is keen on this. Now we're thinking about ways to align the resources so that the public can enjoy some kind of exhibition or guided tours or some kind of experiential activities. Now, on Pingshan, we're delighted to see that tourists like that trail. People are keen on making things happen in Pingshan. We still have to get the consent of the owners, so we will continue to work on this. Next, Mr. Michael Lok. Thank you, Chairman. I support the declaration of these two sites as monuments. How do we send a meaningful message? That is, how do we go beyond just giving these two sites a legal status? Now, there's the Qinglin Terrace. It's just a walkway that's outside the Lopan Temple. It looks nice. It's paved. Can we decorate the area? Can we have carving along the same theme? How do we promote the spirit of craftsmanship? Lopan Temple is small. So can the Development Bureau and relevant parties adopt augmented reality or some other technologies to promote the temple? Now, I know the residence of Tang Pak Khao is private property. I haven't talked to the descendants of this Mr. Tang. Now that the Tang's residence is turned into a monument, do we know what the owner thinks? Can we offer any kind of support, or do we offer the support? When we visit the mainland, monuments are used as resources to promote traditional culture. The late Mr. Tang promoted culture and education. So have we talked to the descendants of Mr. Tang about how we can revitalize the residence? Commissioner. Now first, the Central and Western District. Qinglin Terrace is a residential area. We will get in touch with the local stakeholders, the local departments. We will explore what we can do to promote the local characteristics and promote the culture of the Lopan Temple. Now, on the point about the residence of Tang Pak Khao, the executive secretary can tell us more. The owner of the Tang residence is willing to preserve the residence as a monument. The owner is still occupying the residence with furniture and personal belongings, so it will take some work before we can open up that residence. The monument status will not affect the ownership. So we haven't discussed revitalizing the building. But if the owner is keen about this, the AMO will be happy to talk to the owner to see how we can take that forward. Anything to add? The member wondered if we can try multimedia options to promote the temple. So that's one direction we can consider. For Lopan Temple, we now have a QR code. People who visit the temple can scan the QR code. They can access videos with audio explanation about the features of the temple. Now, depending on the resources we have, we can work on less. Now, we have secured the consent of the owner of the 10 residents for 3D scanning. So for people who cannot visit the residence in person, they can go on this virtual tour to learn about the history of that residence. Next, Ms. Doreen Kong. I support the declaration of these two sites as monuments. Here's my question. For the Lopan Temple, on either side, there are different structures, a pavilion and also a kind of tower with different architectural features. So for for the pavilion, can you tell us about the thinking behind incorporating them into the monument? And I want to get the government's view on monuments. I took courses in monuments around the 2010s. Back then, the government committed vast resources to this area. Now, our approach is to turn buildings into historic buildings or monuments. If resources are available, can we make progress on monuments? Can we move beyond just showing the buildings? Can we find a way to attract locals and inbound visitors? There are many monuments in the new territories. There are clusters of monuments in the new territories. Can we take our antiquities and monuments to the next level? Let's think about the connections between the monuments and our community. Can we create an industry out of it? Can we innovate with this area? Resources permitting, let's go further with our monuments and antiquities, Commissioner. So our Executive Secretary can first respond to the point about Lopan Temple. Yes, so the pavilion, I believe you were referring to the Kwangju Tong office. So that's Grade 3 historic building. It was built in 1949. So we pick Grade 1 historic buildings of great heritage value, and then we consider turning those buildings into monuments. Grade 3 historic buildings are still protected. Now, on the second question, I will give a brief reply. Now, we value the conservation and protection of monuments, but we keep adopting new techniques, and that includes new technologies. Well, now we're making greater use of 3D scanning and drones. We'll try to keep a digital record of monuments. That will mean greater efficiency for preservation. That will also aid promotion. With the digital records, we want to put the data on the platforms of the Lands Department. so that people can view the details of a structure in 3D terms online. And we also offer virtual tours. We pick important monuments. We present them online as virtual tours for people. We want to get people to learn about our monuments. And we've covered 7 districts as an initiative about monuments. We want to cover all districts in Hong Kong. Monuments tell stories about Hong Kong's history. Now, but without initiative, we can tell people about the stories of each district. We also work with different partners. We have entered into a cooperation agreement with the mainland cities of the GBA. Now, we held an exhibition of the Lingnan architectural tradition. There are many buildings in the new territories. We want to show people the links between buildings in Hong Kong and the broader architectural tradition in southern Guangdong so that we can tell young people about this.
Next, Mr. Benson Luke. Thank you, Chairman. I strongly support the declaration of Lopan Temple and Tampakao's residence being listed as monuments. Lopan Temple has very high cultural and tourist value. Lopan Temple tells us how we can pass on the heritage of construction work. For example, apprenticeship, respecting masters and teachers. This is very much aligned with our society's core value. The administration's documents also provide that during the master festivals, the operators distribute lunch boxes to the underprivileged groups. This is very much encouraged. Of course, with the declaration as monuments, I hope the administration can offer more support, be it for policy support or more substantive support. We mentioned that the Lopan Temple has finished its renovation work. I know a lot of effort were paid. But my question is, as we said, there was a high level of engagement with the public. After the declaration as monuments, will the administration work with the owners and managers of the temple so you can have better engagement and interaction with the public so we can promote the craftsmanship? Secondly, as for Tampakao's residents, Mr. Tam contributed a lot to educational courses and other areas in new territories. As we said, the residents, Mr. Tan's descendants are still using the residence. I know that the government will also create a 3D plan to create a digital record of the residents. But apart from that, how can we build better connection between the residents and the society? For example, we can look at how people live in that residence. How can we take a closer look at the stories behind? So how does the administration plan to promote that area? Do you have any examples to share? Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Luke. So first of all, I'd like to respond to your question regarding the Lopan Temple, and my colleague will answer a question about Tampakao's residence. Lopan Temple is very important. The Secretary of Development and also the Construction Council paid a lot of attention to the preservation work. Its historical value, its educational value, artistic value warrants more promotion. As we said, we have been keeping close touch with the managers of the Lopan Temple. We will keep doing so in the future. We hope that we can offer more opportunities to the young people so they can know more about the construction industry, so they can join the industry in the future. And with the Construction Council, we hope that by working with them in promoting Lopan's craftsmanship, we can also promote other construction techniques. And we can even work together with the industry in the Greater Bay Area, so we can work together in complementing our engineering technologies and build Hong Kong into a center for high-end advanced construction techniques. So my colleague will answer the question regarding Tampakou's residents. We've been in close touch with the descendants and owners of the residents. We need to see if it can be open to the public. The owners are very open, and they're very keen to have discussion with us, and they wonder if we can arrange some irregular tour groups, guided tours. But it's not only for the residents. There were some other ancestral homes, schools, and other Grade 1 historical buildings around. So if we pay a visit there, it's not only for that residents. We can also visit other ancestral homes and other tourist attractions in Kamtin, so we can create more connections with the local community. Next one, Jofi Chen. Thank you, Chairman. I support the amendment to the Antiquities and Monuments Ordinance in declaring the two sites as monuments, and this promotes the attention from the public. And I'd like to focus on Lopan Temple, and this testifies the artistic value and craftsmanship. So it's an example telling a good story of Chinese culture, but also craftsmanship. So in this regard, I believe we need a cross-departmental partnership. Cultural, tourism, and sports bureau, and we need to make good plans for the transportation around the community. This is in Kennedy Town. We have MTR stations and bus stations around, so it's hard to plan. I believe we should have good discussion with the Welfare Bureau, because Lopan Temple testifies the craftsmanship that we have been promoting as a union. And as I said, Lopan Temple, as my colleague said, should not be only an attraction. So I have two suggestions. I know the temple is not a big one, but there is an empty site at the doorstep for some activities. And I read the web blog of the secretary that Lopan Temple had hosted the elections for young Lopan masters. But these award ceremonies were hosted in many editions, but the involvement, the turnout was still not very high. The Young Lopan Award ceremony has been there for many years, but the level of engagement was not high enough. Can we probably invest more resources in promoting the award ceremony so people know that Lopan Temple has close connection with young construction masters? Secondly, on the 13th day of the 6th month in the lunar calendar, this is the birthday of Master Lopan. Can we have more festival activities to attract attention, so Lopan Temple can be we can inject more new elements to Lopan Temple so people know the temple better? Commissioner, thank you. We will continue to discuss with Kong Yutong, the operator of Lopan Temple, for closer cooperation. And that means we will have more activities to promote the culture of Lopan craftsmanship. And it's also good for apprenticeship and heritage in construction industry. We will also work with the industry in promoting the culture, so the young generation and the public can learn about construction industry and its contribution to Hong Kong. We hope that these activities can garner more support. Secondly, regarding the venues for activities, both Lopan Temple and the office besides it were used as activity venues for promotional events. For example, after renovation, before the master plan of Lo Pan Temple was uploaded on the website, it was displayed at the AMO office, and it was displayed in Kowloon Park. So if people go there, they can see the map of Lo Pan Temple, and it's not only a floor plan, but also contains some ancient Chinese stories. So apart from the temple itself, we can borrow more government vicinities and amenities for promotion. So we have the second round of questions. Now it's my time to ask a question. Well, this is not a question, but a comment. This is more of a bigger picture problem. AMO is part of the Development Bureau. In 1980s, 1990s, antiquities and monuments in Hong Kong were not protected well. So back then, development departments were tasked with protecting these monuments. And a list was made, a legislation was made to protect these sites. But over time, for example, a dozen of years ago, I promoted the establishment of sports tourism and a cultural bureau. And I suggested that resources should be reallocated. Well, the reason I say that doesn't mean that I have any objections to your work. I think AMO has done a pretty good job, because in Hong Kong, given the current circumstances, your job is very hard. But in the long run, on the one hand, the central government positioned Hong Kong as a center for cultural exchange between China and foreign countries. And Hong Kong is supposed to be built into a city of charm and vitality. But antiquities and monuments are definitely part of them. We have we have found every site that is possible and list them as historical sites and monuments. I think we share the same goal, turning these monuments and historical sites into something that can embody its cultural and societal values. As Commissioner said, we have considerations for every project, but due to resources constraints, maybe we're not doing a good job for each one. I'm not asking for answer on the spot, but you can put that on your to-do list. Secondly, for grade 1, 2, 3 historical buildings, are they going to be listed as monuments? I think the number of monuments will increase in the future. But if that's the case, what are their roles? Is AMO, will it still be a part of the development department? Protection of antiquities and monuments should be another topic. But this is not for development. This is more for preservation and revitalization. So I think it's important for us to think about how to do a better job. So let me zoom in on these two projects. I strongly support them, and I think these two sites are very rare in our society. I think we need to declare them as monuments. But how can we tackle the problem of private properties? These are both private properties. Can they play a proper role in education, tourism, and preservation? We have a lot of things to discuss. Well, my suggestion would be, for example, for Tampak House residents, there is a history behind. Back then, after the anti-British war, it was left on site, and the the Tans got back the iron gate of the village from the British. So this was a good story to tell, to galvanize patriotism. And the second example is, of course, Lopan. When I was in my middle school, which was an industrial middle school, I did a lot of engineering work, and I understand how craftsmanship is important to young people, and it will help them create good values for the life. I believe we can make the best use of the two historical sites so they can contribute to society. I don't know if the administration has anything to respond to.
我哋政府嘅
I will give a brief reply. In our heritage policy, we stress sustainable development. The Secretary for Development mentioned this in a speech. She said, in development, we have to consider conservation. In the upcoming Northern Metropolis project, historic buildings will be part of the new development areas. We are not going to get rid of those buildings. Instead, we will have buffer zones, there will be plazas, open space. There will be enough scope and resources for us to conserve historic buildings alongside new development. So members and the chairman can rest assured we will work on this. At the Antiquities and Monuments Office, we have many people who are at the rank of museum directors, and they are on an equal footing with the museum heads of the museums under the LCSD's management. So we have the people in this area. The government coordinates its work across different departments. So just because the AMO is under the Development Bureau, that will not affect the work on heritage conservation. I'm saying we should go a step further. You have a private owner who is keen about the work, but that property remains inaccessible to the public. So what can we do to tie in with the development in terms of culture, tourism, and sports? So can we deploy resources? Without resources, you cannot get anywhere. So we will look into this after the meeting. Thank you. Now, we're done with round one. Let's come to the second round. Two members are waiting to speak. We will start with Professor Lau Chipeng, followed by Mr. Perry Yu. Professor Lau, let's do 3 minutes. I want to write on a point also raised by the chairman. Over the past 20 years, maybe few people know this. There was a change in the bureau overseeing the AMO. We also now have this commissioner for heritage now. The AMO used to be under the Home Affairs Bureau. Putting the AMO under the Development Bureau made a real difference in terms of the repairs and conservation efforts. But there were constraints on the AMO. People see a great story behind a monument, but there are constraints to what the office can do. We cannot expect a cabbie to tell you about the stories of Hong Kong while that cabbie is taking you somewhere. To make that happen, you need more resources and more room. And that brings us back to this question. Why not put the AMO under the Culture, Sports and Tourism Bureau? This is about culture. This is supposed to be under the CSTB. But of course, that's not a question for the officials present today. We're just making this point. But now my question for the Commissioner is, how much scope and what's the amount of resources you have to tell people about the stories about the monuments? You're doing a fine job with conservation. But let's move beyond conservation. What can you do in your capacity with your resources? What can you do with what you have? Commissioner. Each office works with finite resources, but overall, the government values our tourism sector. We want to tell the stories of Hong Kong and China well. We're not just working in silos. We work with the tourism board. Every time we have an event or when we declare somewhere as a monument, we let the HKTB know. We are always in touch about promoting the information to visitors outside Hong Kong. Resource constraints will not hold back our work because this is a whole of government effort. Mr. Perrier, I want to write on Professor Lau's comment. Cross-departmental collaboration matters. The Deputy Chief Secretary will be overseeing this task force on tourist hotspots. So can we start with monuments? That's a low-hanging fruit, a good place to start. And how do we make good use of the tourism sector? Tourism agencies want to explore in-depth itineraries. People cannot visit certain monuments. Making an appointment is a hassle. And museums don't take group bookings. So how can we step up collaboration with the tourism sector? Let's get the sector on board in promotion, and let's also help the sector create in-depth tourism products. We've been working closely with Mr. Perrier. We got suggestions from the tourism sector. The sector may take a particular interest in certain buildings because they see tourism potential. We will get in touch with the relevant parties once we are informed of that. And then we can consider arranging the resources and finding the appropriate way to present those buildings. As the member said, the Deputy Chief Secretary will lead this task force, and he will coordinate the work of different bureaus. For us, we facilitate collaboration on monuments. Now, we just found dinosaurs' fossils. The sector sees that as a way to draw visitors. So that's an example of resources we can tap into so that we can tell Hong Kong stories well. I want to follow up on that. We found dinosaurs' fossils. We are delighted because now our geopark has an extra attraction. So can we maybe have a museum on Port Island? If we have further discoveries, can we have group in, group out for inbound visitors? So what are some ideas the government has? Port Island has an abundance of resources, but because of the waves, accessing that island will be a challenge, so that may not be the best place for a gallery. There are other better alternatives, so we will be working closely with the AFCD on this. We will see what else we find in that area. We will also work with other departments and the Science Museum to tell the stories about that area. Also speaking for the second round, Mr. Dennis Leung. Thank you. Just then, I said we have 134 monuments before adding these two. So with these two, it's 136 in total. Let's make good use of the monuments for education. These two monuments here have great potential for education. We can teach people about patriotism. Take Tempacal's residence. This member of the gentry showed great pet love for his own neighborhood. How do we go steps further? We need a more integrated approach to monuments. Let's focus on the links between different monuments for our tourism sector. And we still have historic buildings with different grades. These buildings age over time, they may become monuments. The government should review these historic buildings as clusters. How do we do better? That's top of mind, not just for us, but for the public at large. The government should move faster with reforms so that we boost our tourism sector with monuments and historic buildings. And there's also this point about our construction industry. Our forefathers came up with different ideas and techniques. We should learn about them. Professor Lau Chi-Pang here is both committed and knowledgeable. He knows history well. So how can we bring these stakeholders together? Let's not let the opportunity go to waste. Let's make Hong Kong a better place. Let's make good use of our monuments to tell Hong Kong's story well. Commissioner, I fully agree. So first, we identify the key monuments. We assess the heritage value. We grade the buildings as grade 1 or grade 2 buildings, and then these buildings become monuments, and then we protect the buildings under the law. Now we want to tell good stories or tell stories well with monuments, and we have the partnership scheme for revitalizing historic buildings. We have given a new lease of life to more than a dozen of buildings, so that these buildings are more than just landmarks. They serve the local community. There are stories, significant stories, with these monuments. We want to link up different monuments to tell people the history of monuments. Each monument is unique with its own characteristics. Lopan Temple, for example, has to do with the construction industry, and that has much to do with our economy. As for Tempacal's residence, it's about the clan-based community. It's about the early days of the new territories. And those buildings, those clans also have much to do with our history. There's an ongoing effort we want to tell people about the history of Hong Kong's education, and that will also cover collaboration within the entire Greater Bay Area. That's because there are all kinds of links exchanges among scholars within the Greater Bay Area. So this has to do not just with buildings, but Hong Kong's development as a whole. So we will be open to suggestions to do better on this front.
And we have finished all the questions. As a brief summary, as you know, our discussion was not only about the values of the two historical sites, these two monuments, where you strongly support them, and we also learned that these monuments can be used in a better way to tell stories about Hong Kong and China in a good way, and they can also unite our communities. I hope that these values, this information has been communicated to the administration. And going forward, we're now starting the scrutiny of the provisions. I think this is a rather simple job. I suggest we examine the Chinese version, and the English version will be scrutinized by the legal advisors. So I'd like to invite the administration to introduce the provisions of the draft so members can ask follow-up questions. And you can also refer to the marked up text CB bracket 1 1402/2024 bracket 01. So, Secretary, please. Ms. Low, please. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. So now it's proposed that the Antiquities and Monuments Declaration of Monuments and Historical Buildings Consolidation Notice, it's Cap 15 sub legislation B. We propose to amend the Article 3 Declaration of Historical Buildings. There are two items. One, CU period was removed, replaced by semicolon, and we add two historic sites, Lopan Temple at England Lot number 2705, 15 Chinlin Terrace, Canada Town. And we add the residence of Tambakau at K Cutting Y Lot number 183, 184, 185, 186, and 187 in DD 109, sections A and B of Lot number 409 in DD 109, and section B of Lot number 417 in DD 109, 20 Qin Tong Chun, County Yunlong, New Territories. Any questions? If there are no more questions, we have finished the scrutiny of the Chinese version of the marked up text. And any supplementary information from the legal advisors on the English version. We have reviewed both Chinese and English versions, and we have no more comments. Thank you. If there are no questions from the legal advisor, I'd like to ask everyone, as for this declaration, do we need to invite the public to submit their opinions? If this is not the case, then we need to go for the timetable of legislation in order to allow the subcommittee to have sufficient time to scrutinize the declaration and make it public. I will move a motion at the Legislative Council's meeting on the 6th of November 2024 and extend the scrutiny period of the documents to the 4th of December in 2024. May I draw your attention to the following timetable? If everything goes well, then the deadline for the scrutiny will be the 4th of December 2024, and reporting to the House Committee, the deadline will be 22nd November 2024, and the deadline for a notice on the amendments of the subsidiary legislation is 27th November 2024. If we have no more questions on the scrutiny, we won't need to have further meetings. Other business? No other business? If this is the case, I declare the scrutiny closed and I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.